good, everyone, and welcome back to the Mayo Media Network. My name's Griffin Swanson, and today I'm going to be breaking down the Monday Night Football game between the New Orleans Saints and the Seattle Seahawks. Looks like we got another interesting primetime game here, as a handful of players have already been listed as out, but that is part of the beast of playing these showdowns. However, I do have a couple of prize picks here that I like for this Monday night game, and then we're going to dive into my spreadsheet, breaking down that DraftKings Showdown slate. But before we do that, if you could like this video here and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. The Mayo Media Network has football content coming out Monday through Sunday all season long, and you don't want to miss out on any of that. And for you podcast people, you can always head over to the Apple Pods or Spotify and find all of the content there. And don't be afraid to leave a 5-star review while you're at it. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into this Monday night game, kicking it off with a couple of prize picks that I like. All right, so I'm over on the PrizePicks.com website here now, and for those of you who are not familiar with PrizePicks or have not signed up yet, we got a promo code for you if you want to do so, and that's code MMN. You use that upon sign up, you're going to get up to a $100 match deposit as soon as you put your money in. It's not like some of these other DFS sites where you have to earn that money back by playing a bunch of contests. Not with PrizePicks. As soon as you put your money in, PrizePicks will match that up to $100. Again, you just need to use code MMN upon sign up. Now, as you can see here, there's a number of different sports that we can choose from here when it comes to PrizePicks, as well as a number of player props. The two that I like here for this Monday night game are both going to be receiving yard props. So we're going to scroll down here to the bottom for that Monday night game, and the first one that I like is Marquez Callaway, over 41.5 receiving yards. He should basically be acting as the number one wide receiver in this matchup here, considering all the injuries to the Saints wide receivers, and Callaway's hit 41 receiving yards or more in each of his past 3 games. He had 41 back in week 3, but in his past 2 weeks, he's hit 74 and 85. Now, they're coming off a bye here, so he should be well rested against a secondary for the Seattle Seahawks that has not been good all year long, and realistically, this guy could hit the over on one single catch. He's got that deep threat ability. In just his past 2 games here, he had a catch for 49 yards and 58 yards, which would meet the over here at 41.5. And I'm looking at a few different projection sites here as well, and all 3 of them have him hitting the over at that number all the way up to 59 receiving yards. So that's the first over that I like, and then the other over that I like is actually right next to him. That's going to be DK Metcalf, over 59.5 receiving yards. This guy's averaging 73.5 receiving yards per game so far this year, and yes, I do understand that Geno Smith is throwing him the ball, but just last week he had 7 targets, was tied for first on the team there, had 6 receptions and 58 receiving yards playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. So my guess is PrizePicks is going a little off of that number there, but now they're back at home, don't have to worry about that Pittsburgh Steelers noise. Heinz Field gets super loud, and so things should be a little bit easier here for Geno Smith in this home environment. And I'm looking at these 3 projection sites here once again, and all 3 of these sites have DK projected for at least 67 receiving yards. So I think the cause for concern with everybody is Geno Smith, but assuming that DK can still get his normal 7-8 plus targets, he should be fine at this number of 59.5. So I'm going to take the over on both of these guys here. And again, we can approach this 2 different ways, the flex play or the power play. But if you go the power play route, you will need all of your picks to hit, but it does increase the payout. Now, again, for those of you who want to sign up for PrizePicks, just make sure you use code MMN, Mayo Media Network, for up to a $100 match deposit. But all right, let's go ahead and dive into this spreadsheet here, breaking down that DraftKings Showdown slate. And as always, we're going to start here in the top left-hand corner with those Vegas odds. You can see the Saints are favored to win here on the road, sitting with a money line of minus 200 and a 4-point spread. And then the over-unders coming in at 42.5 points. Definitely not projecting to be a shootout. Like I said, it could be another interesting game here, just like that Thursday night showdown game where there were a lot of injuries and a lot of players listed as out before the game even started. Looks to be the situation here as well. Now, before we dive into my favorite plays, though, I do want to cover some of these showdown stats from 2020. So let's hop on over to this spreadsheet here. I'm going to go through these pretty quick, but take a screenshot of these. Do whatever you want with them. But this is in regards to the top 1% of lineups from showdowns in 2020. money. So number one, 92% of all showdown lineups rostered at least one quarterback, and of the top 1% of lineups, 96% had a quarterback rostered as well. Number two, 33% of all lineups rostered a wide receiver at captain, and of the top 1% of lineups, 31.4% did as well. Number three, 57% of the top 1% of lineups rostered a captain from the team favored to win. So in this showdown example here, from the New Orleans Saints. Number four, running back and opposing quarterback, wide receiver, or tight end was included in 88.9% of the winning lineups that rostered a quarterback, wide receiver, or tight end from the other team at captain. Number five, ignore defense and kickers in the captain spot. Very rarely does that work. Only 1.1% of the time last year in the 1% of lineups. And number six, do not play more than two kickers or defenses in the same lineup. Usually one is fine. But with all that said, let's go ahead and dive into my favorite plays here, kicking it off with the captains. And for those of you who are new to this video here, what I do is I list out a captain from both sides of the game, something I've done all season long and will continue to do going forward. The first guy I got there is DK Metcalf on the Seattle side of things, has clearly been the number one wide receiver with Geno Smith under center. I know it's only been about 1.5 games so far that these two have played together, but the two did connect for a 23-yard touchdown 2 games ago against the LA Rams, and we know that's certainly not an easy matchup against those cornerbacks. And then last week he was tied for first with 7 targets from Geno, reeling in 6 of those receptions and 58 receiving yards. And Geno Smith didn't even show up until the second half. He had 76 passing yards in the first half and then ultimately did finish with 209. I'll touch on that here in just a minute, but needless to say, DK really didn't have a lot going his way until the second half of that game against the Steelers. Now on top of that, Metcalf does have a good matchup here this week. Should avoid Marshawn Lattimore for the most part, the Saints' number one cornerback, and he should see Saints cornerback Paulson Adebo for the most part in this game, who Pro Football Focus has ranked 101 of 118 at the cornerback position this year. So he's got a smash matchup here. If Geno can get him the ball early and often, he could definitely have himself a game. I mean, we all know the upside that DK Metcalf has. And then on the Saints side of things here, I am going to roll with Marquez Callaway in the captain spot. I'm talking from a GPP perspective here. If you do play cash on showdowns, which I don't do, but if you do, then AK is probably the best play here on the Saints side of things. I mean, he's projecting far and above anybody else on this showdown. You can see I got him listed as a flex play here, and you could put him in the captain spot. But if you're looking to get a little more contrarian, which is tough to do on these showdowns, I think you can do that a little bit with Marquez Callaway. Now, he should still be a popular play in general because the wide receiver core for the Saints is just decimated right now, and he should be the number one wide receiver in this matchup. So I like him here, talked about him in PrizePicks. He's coming off a game here where he had 8 targets, 85 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns, scoring 24.5 DraftKings points. That's a pretty damn good ceiling in regards to putting someone in the captain spot in a game that's only projected here for 42.5 points. So yes, Alvin Kamara is probably the best overall play, but if you are looking to get a little contrarian and get away from that, Marquez Callaway here should have a pretty good matchup against that Seattle secondary, and the upside seems to be there as well. Now hopping on down here to my favorite flex plays, obviously the first guy I got there is Alvin Kamara. Now look, if you want to get really contrarian on this slate, one way to do that is fading AK. I don't know if I got the stones to do that. Like I said, he's projecting far and above anybody else on this showdown slate here, and rightfully so. We all know what he's capable of doing. He's scored at or above 15 DraftKings points in 4 or 5 games so far this year. He's got the upside of 30 plus DraftKings points. He's done that a number of times over the course of his career. And what I love to see is him coming off a game here back in week 5. Reminder, they just had a bye in week 6, but that game in week 5 against the Washington football team, he had 8 targets in that game. Now, that's usually not something that we need to be worried about with Alvin Kamara, especially when he was playing with Drew Brees. But early on in the season, he just wasn't getting involved as much in the passing game with Jameis Winston, and we saw that change prior to bye week, and that should continue here against the Seattle Seahawks as well. So play AK in the captain spot, play him in your flex play, or if you're looking to get really contrarian, well, then maybe you do want to fade him. And then I got the Saints quarterback there, Jameis Winston. Think you could put him in the captain spot as well. He has hit 27 plus DraftKings points in 2 of 5 games so far far this year. He's been a bit up and down, though. Started off the season great, then went through a little lull there where he was only scoring anywhere from 10 to 13 DraftKings points, and then he comes back prior to the bye week and puts up another 27 plus. So the upside is there with Jameis Winston as well. It really just depends on the Winston that we get game in and game out, but he does have 12 touchdowns compared to 3 interceptions, and that's kind of been 50-50 over the course of his career. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but also not really. With that being said, though, he has played a little bit safer this year, so that's kind of why we've seen him play up and down, but he's got a little bit of rushing upside as well, hitting 19 plus rushing yards in 3 of 5 games. So you could put him in the captain spot here too, due to the ceiling that he does have, and this defense for the Seattle Seahawks has not been good this year, so I do like the Saints in this matchup in general, but they're likely going to be the most popular plays on this showdown slate as well. Now, I'm by no means going to force Geno Smith into my lineup here, but I did want to highlight him, particularly because I have DK Metcalf in the captain spot, and when you're putting someone in the captain spot, you like to have a little correlation within your flex plays, and so that makes sense to go with Geno Smith here. But like I said, he really struggled last week, especially in the first half of that game against the Steelers. Only had 76 passing yards after the first 2 quarters, but he did finish with 209 passing yards, played much better in the second half, and had a touchdown in the second half as well, putting up 11.3 DraftKings points. That might be what he does here. The Saints defense is legit, but they are back at home. Like I said, it'll be a much quieter environment for him, and hopefully he can just build off of that second half of football from last week and carry that in to this game against the Saints. I also want to mention Tyler Lockett here on the Seattle side of things. Now look, him and Geno have not looked in sync over the past 2 games here. However, he did see 7 targets last week, which was tied for first with DK Metcalf. Unfortunately, he just reeled in 2 of those catches, but good to see that the volume is definitely there. We know what Tyler Lockett is capable of. He could go for 25, 30 plus DraftKings points. He's done that a couple of times already this year, so it is encouraging to see the volume at the very least. And with limited options on the Seattle offense heading into this showdown, I think we have to talk about him. But outside of him and Geno not being on the same page here as of right now, there's also cause for concern about the matchup this week. It looks like Tyler Lockett is going to see the Saints' #1 cornerback, Marshawn Lattimore, for a majority of this game, certainly more than any other of these Seattle wide receivers. Marshawn Lattimore does not shadow anybody, typically just plays on the right side of the field, where Tyler Lockett runs most of his routes. So that's part of the reason why I like DK in the captain spot as well, and Tyler Lockett as more of a flex play. But like I said, we have to talk about Tyler Lockett here. He's a good wide receiver. If him and Geno can get on the same page, he by all means could have a good game. And then I got Alex Collins here, the running back for the Seattle Seahawks. Now, do keep an eye on this. He's technically listed as questionable right now with a groin injury, but as of Saturday night, Coach Pete Carroll came out and said, looks like he's good to go, ready to play on Monday night. So I'm going to take his word for it here and highlight him, and he's looked pretty damn good filling in for Chris Carson, racking up 15.8, 9.2, and 19.8 DraftKings points in each of his past 3 games. Gets a little involved in the passing game, not something that I'm going to depend on, but more so the volume that he's getting while rushing the ball. In his last 2 starts here, he had 15 rushing attempts and just 20 last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and actually rushed for over 100 yards. He's got 2 touchdowns here in his past 3 games as well, and this is going to be a difficult matchup, but like I said, this offense should generally play better while playing at home, and I wouldn't be surprised if they try to feed this guy as much as possible, as long as the game is close, or if by chance they're playing with a lead. I don't know how long that's going to last, but in any case, I do suspect that Collins is going to play quite a bit and get quite a bit of volume. Now, if you think the struggles continue for Geno Smith here in this Monday night game, then I by all means think the Saints defense comes into play. They are pretty damn expensive here at $5,800, but they're projecting pretty well too, anywhere from 8 to 9 points on DraftKings, which is the 9th most on this showdown slate. They're projecting better than some of the offensive players on both sides of the ball, and through 5 games here, they have 10 turnovers, so averaging about 2 per game, 8 sacks. I think that number could go up in this game here because Geno Smith took 5 last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. This defense has a touchdown as well and is averaging close to 10 DraftKings points per game, and they've shown that they can score more than that. Back in week 1 against the Green Bay Packers, they racked up 15 DraftKings points, and then in week 3 playing on the road against the New England Patriots, they scored 20 DraftKings points. By all means, I think that's in the realm of possibilities here against Geno Smith, but again, they are very expensive, and you're probably going to need Smith to struggle in order for them to meet value. Now, rumor has it, Rashad Penny very well could come off the IR on Sunday and play in this Monday night game. If that's the case, then I'm probably off DJ Dallas because Pete Carroll will likely rotate both of those running backs behind Alex Collins, and I'm just not in love with that because DJ Dallas really isn't playing that much to begin with. Only played 34% of the offensive snaps last week, but he did get involved in the passing game. So if Penny is listed as out or still remains on the IR, then I definitely don't mind Dallas here. He had 5 targets and 5 receptions last week, racking up 10 DraftKings points. So some solid upside there for a guy priced at $5,200, and you could probably get him at lower ownership. And if for any reason we get word that Alex Collins is not going to play in this game or is going to be limited, that will make DJ Dallas an even better play. And then to wrap it up here, I got 2 low-priced options on the Saints side of things here. I mentioned earlier there's a handful of injuries heading into this Monday night game, largely on the wide receiver side of things for the New Orleans Saints. They're just decimated there, which is why I like Marquez Callaway. But Adam Trautman and Kenny Stills here could be low-priced options that get more involved this week. Now, I want to mention something here with Adam Trautman because Juwan Johnson very well could be the guy too. I didn't highlight Juwan Johnson because he's really only used in the red zone, whereas Trautman plays about 73% of the offensive snaps. But the two are tied with 3 red zone targets this year, which is the second most on this Saints team. And Johnson's done a lot more with those targets. Trautman's only scored 1 touchdown, whereas Johnson's gone 3 for 3 in the red zone himself. So you could by all means roll out Juwan Johnson here. Just know he's probably only going to be involved in the red zone, whereas Trautman is playing a little bit more in general. But again, a low-priced option here that could score a touchdown and get you double-digit DraftKings points. And then the last guy I got there is Kenny Stills, who should act as wide receiver number 2 for the Saints in this game here. Coming off a game back in Week 5 against the Washington football team, where he saw a season-high 71% of the offensive snaps played and 5 targets. I don't care who you are. If you're getting 5 targets at $1,600, you're going to be on my radar. He's actually projecting pretty well this week, anywhere from 7 to 10 DraftKings points. You never know. Maybe he finds the end zone and gets you 15, 16 DraftKings points. It's certainly not his first rodeo. I know he's kind of bounced around the NFL here over the past few seasons, but this is also a guy who's had a handful of really good games in the NFL. Back in 2016, he scored 9 touchdowns that year, and he's come close to hitting 1,000 receiving yards in a season on 2 separate occasions. Now, I'm not going to pretend we're going to get that Kenny Stills in this Monday night game, but a guy who's definitely familiar, playing not only in primetime games, but acting as a wide receiver number 2, and at $1,600 here, like I said, if you can get 5 targets once again, I don't care what your name is, you're definitely going to be on my radar, and Kenny Stills is. All right, everyone, that is going to wrap up the video here for today. As always, thank you all for taking the time out of your day to watch these videos. If you could like this video here and subscribe to the Mayo Media Network, I would greatly appreciate that. And as a reminder for those of you who want to sign up for PrizePicks, just make sure you use code MMN Mayo Media Network for up to a $100 match deposit. It's house money, it's free money. You might as well take advantage of that if you're going to be signing up. But let's have a great day here, folks. Let's win some money on Monday night as well. I'm out of here.